So, oh, my mic's all beeping at me already. It's Happy Thursday. We're here to talk trauma, well-being, and all the good things that happen in between. And of course, I'm joined by the beautiful Catherine, my lady in blue, who shimmers brightly and makes us all feel absolutely good. And I'm just wondering whether my mic is now beeped off me, my speaker, because it's just beeped. So I might not be able to hear you. This could be quite fun. Let me see if my headphones work. Maybe we'll go with the headphones.
Can you hear me? Can you?
Oh, I can hear you.
You can.
Yes.
Okay, good.
But in case we think, well, no. So, guys, if you are tuning in and listening, and if I go completely doolally, it's pretty normal. Do say hello, ask your questions, thoughts, even if it's the replay. Catherine and I will be checking back. So, obviously, Catherine, my lady in blue, beautiful lady. How are we doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. Yes, thank you so much for inviting me on.
That's okay, because obviously this week I've been talking about things that we need to let go of, and obviously past trauma is a massive one of that.
Yeah.
So probably the easiest way for people to connect to it, because we can always talk about things like what trauma is, and we all kind of get it, but how can it really show up in our lives so that we can sort of start to identify it? How can it actually show up?
So trauma, unresolved trauma, presents itself through behavior. So if you think of things like a really common one would be anxiety, bouts of depression, alcohol, excessive alcohol. Excessive alcohol would be a numbing symptom. Overworking, overeating, undereating. These are all numbing behaviors or distraction behaviors. It really presents itself through anything extreme. So anything that is beyond the norm.
So like an obsessive compulsive sort of addiction.
Yes, exactly. Well, yeah. At the beginning, it would start as a distraction or a numbing, or even a mask, some way of sort of wearing a mask, and then it would develop into a more established habit, and then obviously if it's a substance addiction.
And I think the important thing to be aware of, because obviously you mentioned alcohol, we term alcohol as bad habits. Obviously, we would brand in smoking, things like that with it. But obviously, from my experience, we can also blend in exercise and things like this. So all the really good habits, the obsessiveness to those. So that's quite common, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. Anything can become obsessive, yes.
And of course, trauma, obviously. How would we... So obviously, if we're throwing ourselves into an obsession and we're getting involved, what happens when people sort of identify it as trauma? Like, because obviously a lot of the times we think it's like one instant, but then generally, as you know, digging back, it's something that happened as a child, maybe as a teen, so as a young age. How would we sort of go through and identify that an addiction, whether it's just as getting over something in the now and there's something deeper?
Yeah, so it's looking back. It's really exploring back to see what has happened. So if you have a behavior, if you're having a behavior which we would say is a symptom, then you would work back to the last time you can remember not having that symptom or that behavior, and then it will be around there. The initial trauma would be around there, and then you'll carry it through. And often people don't know what it is, what started it. Often people don't even know that the behaviors they're presenting is a symptom, so they'll just carry it. They'll think that that's just for self-loathing, for example. They think that's normal. They think, well, it's normal to... Doesn't everybody hate themselves? And, it's arrogant to love yourself, sort of thing. But self-loathing is a symptom from some sort of trauma.
Yeah. Right, quick good morning to Rick, who's actually pinged us twice because he loves us both that much.
Oh.
Double whammy. Because obviously, you've said something quite there about how someone's loving yourself comes across as ego. Could having an ego be a sign of covering for trauma?
Absolutely. Yeah, defense mechanism. Absolutely.
So it's I'll say the way we could say is in a short way. I'm trying to put this in a short,
it's
easy
a huge topic. I know it's difficult to keep it really condensed.
Is the fact it's our way of protecting ourselves.
Yes. Absolutely, yeah. Coping mechanisms. Yeah, we develop coping strategies. Unconsciously, we develop coping strategies, and we just take these through, and they become such solid habits and behaviors that we think that's... I hate the word normal, but we think that's normal in our everyday life.
I think that's our life.
Yeah.
So guys, if you are joining and tuning in, like Rick did, say hello, drop in your comments, questions. We are talking trauma, how it shows up, and of course the niggly bad habits that sort of mask it, because we want to get rid of bad habits and embrace all the goodness. So when we say somebody's overcome their trauma, I'm like dancing on my swivel chair. Have you noticed?
Love a swivel chair.
So it's obviously there. I've got the childhood trauma somewhere, because I every time I get a swivel chair, I have to swivel. But we can actually show ourselves up in certain ways. Okay, we might overcome this. We've then decided to face it, and we decide to face our habits that are masking it. What would it feel like for somebody? How long would we sort of go through this journey to transform and deal with our trauma?
Gosh, that would depend on the individual. It would be, it can go for the whole of your life. You could be working on overcoming this for the rest of your life, or you could put it to bed very early. The first step is facing it, accepting that it happened, whatever it was, recognizing what it was. You might never understand why it happened. If you can find a way to sort of make it make sense in your own way, that will help you. But you might never get that. That might never happen, and that's okay. You don't need to make sense of it. It will just help you if you can, but it's not imperative. And then you're always going to find triggers at some point. There's always going to be something that triggers you in some way, because it's most likely going to trigger you unconsciously. So it's finding ways to manage those triggers, and eventually, as with everything, time does, I wouldn't say time heals, but time definitely softens things, and it will move you away. So it's about moving away from trauma. Is about removing the emotion that's attached to that trauma. And by moving the emotion, you would start to take control of how you react to triggers. And by taking control, that will also build your confidence and know that you are safe and you're going forwards, and you're a long way from whatever actually happened, whenever that actually happened.
So you've taken through a beautiful process there, which is fabulous, but you've also hit on the three elements. So our thoughts, our actions, and our feelings, because obviously attached. So say I'm going to pretend to be the person with trauma. Okay, I've got big trauma. I'm obviously displaying. We've now got to the point of I've confessed this to you. What would be the first element we sort of look at changing to sort of deal with it? Would it be a physical behavior? Would you try and change a thought process, or would you try and get somebody to dig into their feelings? So if somebody was experiencing trauma, what element would be sort of the first target?
Gosh, it would totally depend on the individual. So say somebody has recognized that this thing happened to them when they were young, and they believe that they've carried it as a trauma throughout their early years and then into their adult life, and they want to move away from it because it's impacting their life. And they're finding that certain things are triggering them. So what I would say is I would give them some techniques to use when they're feeling triggered. So certain things, like, because these can happen unconsciously as well. And when we don't know what to do, we feel out of control. And when we feel out of control, we feel vulnerable and exposed, as if we were back there when that trauma happened. So taking control. So a really simple one is a breathing exercise. So simple. We can all do this. Really deep breath in, hold it, and really slow deep breath out, breathing from the really deep down in the stomach. There's so many different ways of doing breathing as well. An easy one to remember is the square, the breathing square. It's breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. Super easy. Or like I say, you can just do a deep breath in and a really slow deep breath out.
I did that in 6-8.
I use that all the time. It's, oh my gosh, it's instant. I love that one. It's so easy. Visualizing a safe space, knowing that I'm in a safe space. I'm a long way from that happened. Nothing can hurt me now. You could even imagine you are you're on in a beautiful log cabin on a lake, whatever it is that's a beautiful safe space to remove you from that emotional spot that your triggers caused. Self-soothing So if you can imagine a person that you feel really close to, that really makes you feel safe and comforted, and you can imagine that person, how they look, how they smell, how they make you feel, the sound of their voice, their persona, what they would say to you to calm you down in this situation. Another really good one is that 5 things. It's 5 things. So just stop and think, okay, 5 things I can see. What can I see? What 5 things can I see? What 4 things can I touch? What 3 things can I hear? And what 2 things? Oh gosh.
Smell?
Oh, I'm lost. What is it? The last one is 1 thing I can taste.
Smell?
Smell. Yes, smell. So it's the kinesthetics, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory. Whew.
Hitting your 5 senses. See,
There you go. Yeah,
that's the way I remember it. Hitting the 5 senses. So
yeah.
the easiest one comes first is what you see.
Yeah.
And then obviously hear.
That's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go, guys. I hope you had the notebook and pen out for that.
Yeah.
If not, yeah. So we've got our breathing. So box breathing is actually a fabulous one, or even just slow breath. So slow in, slow out. Visualization, take yourself to a happy space, and of course, engaging your 5 senses in a beautiful way. Okay, so there's 3 great tips there. So make note of those, because it might not be you, it might be someone in the future. Because obviously we've been talking how these show up as bad habits, and of course we were talking, let's talk about the mask. Okay, because a lot of us at some point will have had a trauma. Okay, we've all had something where something's happened as a child. Okay, in fact, I'll share mine. Okay, my one it's really small, but you can see why it affected me. She's like, what's this?
No, it's not small.
No, basically, when I was a child, I used to play sport after school, and my dad was self-employed. He used to get very busy in his activities. Although everything was on the calendar, my dad used to forget to pick me up. Not because he forgot me, because he got so wrapped up in what he was doing. So I used to sit after school for half an hour to an hour, sometimes make my own way home, get in trouble for it. My dad I told my mum a few years ago, my dad got told off by my mum in his 60s. It was absolutely hilarious. But what that dealt for me was self-sufficient. Okay, someone says they're going to be, they're not going to be there. And that's sort of underneath reliance. And of course, obviously, my acceptance of it was going, Mum, you know, Dad did this. She went, he what? And it was kind of like she hadn't even known that had happened. And actually, by telling her, it made it sort of realize, kind of deal with it, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, of course, we have all this. We cover it up and say things like that, because this is what I say about masks. We go, that's not a big problem, because realistically, how many of us have forgotten something at some point? We've been late, or for whatever reason. Nobody's been hurt. No one's been directly impacted. There's no physical abuse, words. There's no nothing in anything. It's just a case of you sit waiting for half an hour for somebody to pick you up, something very small. But we cover it with a mask and say it's okay. Okay, so let's talk about those masks that we do, because we can carry masks for years and years and years, can't we?
Absolutely, yes. No, we can. And when we take that mask off, we're then exposed and quite often feel as vulnerable as we did when that trauma happened. You saying that trauma was only little. It's not about the fact that, yes, he didn't hurt you or abuse you, but all he did was forget to pick you up because he was busy. But it's the emotion that you attach to that. That's the problem.
And of course, for years, obviously, me and my dad, even as a baby, I wouldn't even let him change my nappy without putting on a face. It was kind of like there was this unwritten relationship between us, if that makes any sense. But obviously, after I did this, our relationship improved, because then I realized he's never going to be the person to go, I love you, if that makes any sense. It's a case of there was a very different relationship. And I realized, obviously, taking a step back, and it's his upbringing. So it actually improved our relationship as a result. But he's never said sorry. I've never gone, I need you to say sorry. I've never needed that. It's just the recognizing what had happened. And just so simple. You don't always need an I'm sorry. You don't need to say something. Sometimes it's just a case of, oh, this happened. Okay. No, let's not make it happen again. Let's realize that this is more important. And And as you can see, I've dealt with it because I'm telling everyone live. I'm on, YouTube.
It's wonderful.
But that's a story of how we can mask ourselves. And we've got the professional here, okay? And I'm just telling the professional. I'm telling all of you, okay? Something so small you can carry as a weight for years and can affect relationships. It can affect your confidence. It affected me with like dating. As soon as I get a message, oh yeah, someone's saying, I would automatically go, okay, I knew they weren't going to turn up. And it's that rejection sort of thing. And again, when I changed that, I improved my relationship with other people. It's that mindset thing. So
great story. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that really shows a great example of how something can impact you.
And something that's, as I say, not generally class. If we say, a lot of time we class a lot of trauma as someone's been physically abusive and sexually abusive and things. And do correct me wrong, but sometimes the biggest trauma is the things that are very easy to dismiss.
Definitely, yeah. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the emotion. So it's the emotion attached to the event, not the event that causes trauma. It's the emotion we attach to it, and that can be anything, and it can be anything or different things for different people, because everybody has their own levels of resilience and coping skills. So it's wide open.
So just a quick close, because we could go for hours on this.
I know, gosh, we've gone over already. Sorry.
I kind of got used to that. Marielle and Shahid, important subject. Thank you. So as we've got the goddess, who's the queen in blue, who is the pro in this field, what is one advice you'd leave our listeners with here on replay to take away when it comes to trauma?
Don't dismiss how you're feeling. If you're feeling that something is, I want to use the word festering, then talk about it. Don't dismiss it as not being, a big deal. If it's affecting the way you're feeling, then talk about it.
Oh, you heard it from the pro guys. Obviously, great show. Obviously, there's some love going out. We like this love. We like this love. So guys, big thank you, Catherine. Thank you for joining me, sharing your thoughts. If you are listening replay or live and you do want to reach out, obviously Catherine is triggered up in the comments. I will make sure it links up in the YouTube as well. Otherwise, do have a fantastic Thursday and weekend ahead. And again, thank you, Catherine, for joining me.
Thank you.
Now, where's my video? Can I get the trig right on this?